How's it going, everyone? It is Andre Williams, and over here we talk stocks and we focus on one thing: always protect your profits. And today we're going to be talking about Lucid and as well as for Polestar. I know it's been a minute since I talked about Polestar, but I know many are saying, hey, we need an update, so I made sure to put this in the Lucid video for you guys. Both of these stocks ended up having red days, and what's most interesting, both of them have a gap that needs to be filled to the downside. I'll talk about that further in this video, but if you're new to this channel, I just want to let you know that we have timestamps down below inside the description to make navigation easier for you. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be taking a look at the charts, we're going to be taking a look at the short interest, and as far as going into Thursday, some levels that you want to look out for. So let's get into those videos, and I also will be having the final thoughts at the end, so let's get into them right now. So we're going to take a look at the chart for Lucid. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at $14.99, being down 2.66%. On the low, it tested $14.51, and then on the high, testing $15.17. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 11.574 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 16.414 million shares. So you can see we did have below average volume on the day, and we saw a pullback in the stock. Now, when we take a look at our chart, which is a daily chart, here's something that is very interesting to me. So as far as for the low of the day, we got to 1451, and guess what? That's the same low that we had from the day before. Also remember, we do have a gap that needs to be filled to the downside right here around 1424, since it did have a gap up on the previous day. So what does this mean? This means that Lucid is definitely still primed in a position to move up further. Not only do we have price action above the 9 EMA, it is at 1475. Of course, we closed at 1499, and as you can see, we had a high at 1517, which is right where we have the 21 EMA, or just slightly above it, since it's at $15.14. So what we want to look for, we want to see Lucid making that move so we can have a close above $15. That would not be too much to ask whatsoever. And if it's able to do that, the next area where we can start seeing some resistance will be right here at this 1568 level that we had on the previous trading day. And breaking above it, that's where you want to see us making that move to $16. But keep in mind, there's going to be a lot of sellers up here, so we're going to have that buying volume coming into the play to push it up further, and then seeing if we can get to this 50 EMA. So overall, let's see what Lucid does going into tomorrow, but at least you know what it looks like to the upside and as well as for the downside. So we're going to take a look at the short interest information for Lucid. So the off exchange short volume ratio is at 38.55%, and then for the off exchange short volume, it is just over 2.89 million shares. Scrolling down on the page, the short shares availability is at 150,000, updated 22 minutes ago, and then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 6.18%. When we take a look at the history of the short volume, we can see for the close of the third, it was at 69.94, and then for the close of the fourth being at 38.55. So that has gone down significantly. And then when we take a look at the short interest percentage of the float being at 21.38%, Lucid does continue to have short squeeze potential. So we're going to take a look at the chart for Polestar. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at $5.82, being down 2.84%. On the low, it tested $5.36, and then on the high, testing $5.91. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 3.318 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 3.152 million shares. So we had above average volume on the day, and we've seen a pullback in the stock. So when we take a look at our chart, which is a daily chart, we do see that Polestar is in a bearish pattern, but at the same time, the fact that it was able to close above the 9 EMA is actually a really good sign. It is at 576, and it was able to close at 582. On the previous day, it had a high just under $6, so we know there's some resistance there. So if we're able to retest this level going into Thursday and we move up further, that's where you want to see if it can get to around $6.37. So that'll be very key. But if it does get there, I do see there could be some sellers here, so please add that to your notes as well. We also have to take into consideration it had that strong gap up, right? So it has a gap to the downside right here around $5.20. 25 cents. So that is something you want to be aware of, because if we decide to have a pullback, considering it did have a low of 536, and if it decides to break through it, then I could see it wanting to fill in that gap. And after filling in that gap, if it decides to retest $5, I'd expect to see bulls wanting to step in. The 52-week low is at $4.92. So if $5 ended up failing and we retested this 52-week low, I could see Polestar wanting to go down even further. So that pretty much sums up my thoughts on it. So now you know what it looks like to the upside and as well as for the downside. So let's see what it does going into Thursday. So we're going to take a look at the recent short interest information for Polestar. So the off exchange short volume ratio is at 51.68%, and then for the off exchange short volume, it is at 982,696 shares. Scrolling down on the page, the short shares availability is at 150,000, updated 24 minutes ago, and then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 87.98%. So that's up there, and then the max on the day was at 94.19%. And then when we take a look at the history of the short volume, we can see for the close of the third, it was at 68.18, and then for the close of the fourth being at 51.68. So that is a significant difference right there. And then when we take a look at the short interest percentage of the float, and also taking in the short borrow fee into consideration, Polestar does have some short squeeze potential. So for my final thoughts for Polestar, when it comes to the price action, we can see that $6 is a psychological area for this play. There are a lot of sellers, so if Polestar can get a break above 6, then I want to see some continued momentum. So please watch that closely, especially since it is seeing resistance at the $5.90 range. Another thing to take into account, it also has a gap that needs to be filled to the downside. It had a strong gap up from the previous trading day, and where this gap is around $5.25. Keep in mind it saw a low of the day of around $5.36. So if it breaks through that, it's going to come down to that level. And what do you want to see? You want to see if the bulls are going to step in and buy up the play, especially since the 52-week low is around $4.92, somewhere in that $4.90 range. There is a possibility we can get there, but if the bulls step in at 5, then we could see it moving up further. So please add that to your homework. Again, $6 is a psychological area. That's all you really need to know, because if it breaks above that, that's where it can get very interesting. And then when we took a look at the short interest information, it does have short squeeze potential. We can see that the short borrow fees being at the max was at 94% today. So what does this play need? It needs a catalyst. It needs buying volume to get it going again. And considering that, you know what, we had the lockup expiration, the stock has pulled back, it got down to the $4 range, the bulls have showed up. I think for investors out there, it's worth some consideration. So do some homework and do some due diligence. Now, as far as for Lucid is concerned, Lucid was very interesting. So for the low of the day, it got down to $14.51. And guess what? That was the same low that it had from the day before. So what do we see? We see there's some strength there. There is some demand at this level. So for Lucid, I want to see it going back to $15 going into Thursday. And most preferably, the levels that you want to watch, 15.33, we get some momentum above 15.50, and then we want to see if it can make that move to $16. But this is not going to happen if we decide to have a pullback in the overall markets. Like I said, Lucid moves with the overall markets. So I want to make sure you're taking that into account, especially when I'm giving you guys these levels. But one thing that we do know for a fact, if we end up testing that support again in that $14.38 level, or even that $14.30 range, there is a possibility we could break right through it, and we do have a gap to the downside, and you could check that out by looking at the chart portion of the video. But with all of that said, for both of these plays, we know how these market conditions have been. So I want to make sure you're taking that into consideration, adding it to your homework, especially if you're going to be trading them. It is very crucial. We are in a bear market. There's a lot of volatility, and when you're seeing green, please don't let your trade go red on you. And for my investors out there, hey, this is the time where you want to really be focusing on doing your research, seeing what's going on in the overall environments, and also taking a look at the companies and taking a look at your overall portfolio and seeing, hey, where could I trim some plays off that I don't like, and where do I have the most conviction when it comes to certain plays that I have? And the ones that you have the most conviction in are the ones that you should be focusing on. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let's see how these stocks perform going into tomorrow, which would be Thursday. We'll be talking real soon.